Hey everyone, and welcome to Sketch for Switchers Part 2, where we're going to cover the basics of creation and editing. Now, what we're going to learn in this chapter is all about shapes, how to edit and manipulate them. We're going to be doing some rounding and flipping, and we're going to introduce us to some different tools that I like to use when I'm editing shapes inside of Sketch. So, with that being said, let's open up a fresh copy of Sketch and get started. Now, even though we could start creating right on the canvas, I always create an artboard just because. So I will create a Apple TV just to get a HD 1920 1080 artboard. It's called Apple TV. It's 1080p essentially. So it's a good place to get started. So now what I want to go over is some of our shape tools. Now, you're noticing maybe some new toolbar icons up here that weren't here last time if you were looking. That is because we edited our toolbar. And you can check out the tips and tricks video from the basics to do that. But essentially, I went into customize toolbar and dragged in the tools I wanted up there because I like to have certain things available right away. So let's start by creating just a basic shape. How about a rectangle? I'll use the shape drop down, even though I could have hit R. So things like this, you notice you can hold shift to stay in square proportion. You can also hold down option to grow from the center. I'm going to hold down shift and make a square. So you can see I get sort of basic alignment smart guide controls like I would get in a Photoshop or potentially an Illustrator here. But what you can do here is every object is indeed a vector. So that means you can subtract and add points to your liking. So I'm going to zoom in, and I use a trackpad. So I'm just pinching and zooming. But you can see you can grab any shape and any corner, and I'll zoom out so you can see that, and kind of edit those paths. So you can double click to go into editing mode, or I'll set that back. But if you come up here to the toolbar, you'll also notice there's an edit button that puts it right into edit mode. So it's up to you which way you want to sort of cue into editing. I love the double click. So here I can pull and drag my vector points. I can also add points. You can see it automatically becomes an add tool. If I click somewhere on the path, and I'll click right here and add. And you notice that is a straight vector, but you can do different things and change the points. So let's come over to our properties panel. So here we have the different types of points. Straight is what it is by default. You can go mirrored. And of course you get your symmetrical vector drag handles. You can go disconnected, which is essentially one completely separate from the other. Neither angle affects it. And then of course the asymmetric, which they do affect each other, but they do not work in complete concert with each other. So essentially all the things you're familiar with the pen tool inside of Photoshop or Illustrator here inside of Sketch. Now you also have controls if you wanted to. I'll hit R and just draw another square for us. If you want to, you can come over to the properties panel and take your basic square and just start rounding it and add some rounded corners just like that. And you'll notice that with rounded corners, you actually have an additional option. You can do round or smooth. And it's a very subtle difference, but let's zoom in so you can see. Here's a smooth corner. Here is a round corner. So a round corner is literally rounding this corner. A smooth corner is kind of calculating in a taper even further. Now, why smooth corner instead of round corner? Well, iOS uses smooth corners. So if you're designing an app icon or something like that, you'll want to use smooth corners. But it's also great for a little bit more naturalistic effect that you don't get when you're using something like Illustrator or Photoshop to do your corners without getting really fancy or doing something special. So I'm also going to turn off show pixels here. So it's smooth throughout and we always have vector going on. So you're probably familiar with this sort of 8 or 9 point grab handles like you would get inside of Photoshop or Illustrator. And you can click those and scale. You'll notice that by default, if you make a square, its properties are trying to stay in proportion by default. So I'll come up here and I'll click this lock to unlock, and you can see a tiny little thing it unlocks here. And now I can kind of stretch or squash in any way I see fit. But in Adobe, you sort of move your mouse to a corner here, and that will summon a rotate for you. This is a little bit different in Sketch. There's sort of rotate mode as a way to express your rotations. So rotate mode can be activated by going up to the top toolbar and hitting rotate, but that's a little cumbersome. You're probably going to be doing a lot of rotating. Why don't we try it with the keyboard instead? That is Command-Shift-R. And I usually like to do that with my thumb, pinky, and pointer finger on my left hand. So thumb on Command, pinky on Shift, and pointer finger on R. But Shift-Command-R will activate rotation mode. And you can see I can drag this around. It shows me the degree. And this is essentially the same as coming up to the Properties panel and typing in a degree rotation. So if you want exactly 45, you can do that. If you want to do 45.5, it'll just round up. When it comes to degrees of rotation, that's not the case when you're doing size, but it is the case when you're doing rotation. But this is kind of rotate mode, and you know you can't do anything except for rotate in rotate mode. If you look at the cursor, it's always in rotate. It kind of like very funny, very follows what's going on, but you can also grab the middle and you'll get the hand and move it. So you can move and rotate and try and get things in position that way. And then when you're done, you can either hit Enter, or you could hit Shift-Command-R and exit rotate mode. So it's up to you. But rotate mode is kind of a distinct mode inside of Sketch, and it's a little bit different from how you might be used to working. All right, I'm going to clear these things out, and we're going to talk a little bit about flipping. So flipping is something that we do a lot. You might be familiar in Photoshop or Illustrator going to edit, transform, flip, or something like that. Well, let's say we create an object that we want to flip. So I'll create a circle, and I'll delete a point here. Then I'll take these 2 points, and I'll make them disconnected. So I'll come up to our properties. I'll say disconnected up here, and I'll flatten them out by dragging my 2 handles. So now I have this half circle, right? And let's say I want to flip it. Here it is staying in proportion. That's exactly what I want it to do for now. So I'm going to do what I would do in Photoshop or Illustrator. I would select the object, hold down Option, and then I will drag, and that will create a copy. If you want to duplicate, you can select something and hit Command-D to duplicate, and you'll get a copy that way. So it's up to you if you want to smash something on the keyboard, if you want to hold down a button. You can also just straight up copy and paste, and it will paste in place by default. So lots of ways of duplicating, but let's say I want one, holding down Option, getting another. Now I could go into rotate mode and either rotate myself or hold down Shift to get it to snap to exact angles, which is pretty handy. But I want something a little bit easier. So with a copy, I'm going to come up to the Properties panel, and you'll see there are 2 controls for flipping. Yeah, that's right. This is super important. Flipping will be something that you probably use quite a bit in icon design. Maybe you have a different technique, but I use it quite a bit. And I'm just going to hit this one right here. You can see it's kind of showing you a little preview of what you would get. And just like that, I have a nicely flipped circle, and it actually looks a little bit like a pill, doesn't it? And you can see with Smart Guides, they can just snap right together. And I have a full circle. You can see a little bit of a gap, but that's just how Sketch is rendering it. When you zoom up close, there actually is no gap. Just a small little sort of rendering quirk of Sketch. Now, earlier when I made that half circle, you saw me sort of make the circle, cut out one vector point, and then adjust 2 parts of it. Well, there is an easier way to do that, and it's with a tool called the Scissors tool. So I'm going to make a new oval / circle by hitting O on my keyboard, and I'll just Drag it until it's centered. Where we go? Up, down. Perfect. There we go. Zoom in a little bit. And now I'm going to use the scissors tool, which if you don't have it right away, don't be alarmed. You can get to it by customizing your toolbar, but I've dragged it up here because I use it quite a bit. So I'm going to select scissors, and you can see when you select it, it turns on these black lines on a shape. Well, scissors means you can hover over a line, and you got to be a little gentle when you come up here. And I'm going to just cut. And then I will turn off the scissors tool. So that literally slices out a section of the vector. Now, what is different between this and the other technique? Well, I'll show you. We have our scissors tool here. I'm going to make a second circle, same size, and I'm going to do the other technique. Oops. Here we go. I'm going to delete this, take this guy and this guy, make them asymmetric, and then I will drag in their handles. And if we look over in our layers palette, one is a complete vector still. So when you delete a point from a vector in Sketch, it remains a sort of fully complete path. When you use the scissors tool, you can see in the highlight already when I hover over each, and you see that blue highlight in the canvas. With the scissors tool, you can even see it in the preview here, you actually have removed some of the vectors. So this is an incomplete path. You can close it if you want, but let's see where this really makes a difference. If I come over to sort of styles and fills, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but I'm going to select them both and I'm going to give them both a border. And I'm going to make that big so you can see. So the difference between these two shapes is one is incomplete. So if you were just trying to do a single stroke in an icon, or you wanted to do, let's say, an eyebrow on an emoji or something, I don't know, whatever you want to do, a smiley face, one of these is going to remove some of the path. The other one is going to edit the path down. So that's why I find myself going back to the scissors tool quite a bit. It's a very useful tool for me. Okay, we got two more things to talk about, masks and booleans. And Boolean is just a fancy way of saying cutouts. But we'll start with masks. Maybe masks are how you're used to working. I prefer to do a lot of work in Sketch with Booleans, but masks are super simple. So I'm going to take a circle. I'm going to drag that out and create one. Then I'm going to hit R and create a square. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that that's disconnected because I don't actually want the full square. I want half a square. And I'm going to change the colors just so we ourselves can see the difference here. So I have a big red square over, obviously it's covering a blue circle. Well, I'm going to show us two copies of this. And I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut of Command, Option, Control. Remember the three fingers. I kind of use my ring, middle, and index to do this, and I'll smash those and then press down, and that's send to back. So now we have two configurations, circle at the bottom, circle at the top, essentially. I'm going to click and select, just drag down and select these two, right-click, and I'm going to hit Mask. So what we have here is the bottom object masks the object above. That might be a little bit different how you're used to thinking about it, but it does work a little bit more like a clipping mask where the object at the bottom, the circle, is hiding the square. We'll do the same thing here, and we'll mask. So the difference that we have to note here is that the original object doesn't actually go away. So that is a particular thing. So if you want to turn something into a clipping mask, you have this gray background, and yeah, you can layer masks on masks on masks. So I'm going to put it behind. I'm going to right click, I'm going to mask it. This gray still has its properties, right? It doesn't become transparent. It's not hiding or showing an aspect of it. So you can still see the gray. Now, let's do some editing of these masks. You'll notice in our layers palette, these became groups. Okay, great. We know all about groups. We can expand them. In this case, we have a mask inside of a mask, so a group Here's our mask. Look at it. It looks just like the clipping mask icon inside of our mask. So the object that becomes the mask is automatically named mask. Okay, that's simple enough. Well, what if you don't want it to be a mask anymore? Can you select it all and say unmask? No. Oh boy, what do we do? Okay, well, there's a couple things to do. We can delete it from the layers palette, but maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we still want the object. Well, from the layers panel, you can right-click a mask and essentially just untoggle the word mask. And if you do that, it becomes not a mask anymore. I'll do the same thing for this guy down here. Uncheck. And so these are back to being a mask. It didn't destroy the group. Everything is still grouped. And I'll show you this. This is a little fun thing I like to do. I'll select the group that contains everything. I'll hit Command-Shift-G. And that's the opposite of Command-G. So if Command-G groups, Command-Shift-G ungroups. And I'm going to do it again. There we go. Now everything's nice and flat and back out. If you take an object that is in a mask and I ungroup it, we have ourselves a little bit of a strange thing happening. We have a mask still, but it is not in a group. So what does that mean? Well, if I took this mask and I dragged it all the way to the bottom, you see every layer above it falls victim to its mask. It's very easy to lose track of layers this way. So here we have a bunch of masks, masked objects, all coming to this. So if you suddenly make an ungroup something, or you can't find something for some reason, that's a little strange. Oh, okay, it's an extra rectangle here. See that? You can't find an object, something's weird. Come check your layers panel. Make sure you don't see these. If you do see these arrows, something is a mask. Go and unmask it if you really want everything to go back to normal. Okay, that's a lot with masks, but it's important to know. So the last thing I want to do with masks really quick is just show you this quick tip. Once you have things grouped or in a mask, in this case I'll right-click and mask these once more. If you want to just directly select the circle or the mask itself, you can hold down Command on your keyboard. That's the button next to spacebar. Hold down Command, and then you can see you'll get the highlight of the exact object. In this case, I want the circle. And there I have my transform controls. And I can control the mask that way. And you bet if I select the mask, I can come here and round it like we did before. And you can see you can kind of build these things. Hold down Option, and you can see our guides. And you can do stuff with masks like that. Now, Booleans work a little bit different. That's masks. Let's move on to Booleans. Booleans look very simple. And we'll use the exact example that's in the icons. So to create the example, I'm going to take two squares that overlap right in the middle, just like that. Then I'll color them just so we can see the difference here. It's 2, 2, 2. And look at this, I ran out of space. I'll select them all, scale them down, space this out a little bit, and we'll do one more. So, Booleans are some of my favorite things for icon design, especially because they help you do really advanced shapes very quickly. So, Booleans work by taking two vector objects or more. It could be as many as you want, and Sketch is really advanced in how they let you stack these and combine them into single objects. So here we have rectangle and rectangle. You see them in the layers palette. They're far away. I'm going to come up to the toolbar and I'm going to say union. And you can see it describes it for you. It combines multiple shapes into a union. So a union, now in our layers panel, it says a combined shape. This works as one shape. If you put on a border, it has this. So this might be stuff you're familiar with from Illustrator or merged layers in Photoshop. You can do multiple paths and the sort of Boolean operations there, but Sketch, it's kind of a very primary way of thinking. So union just combines them. Next, subtract. Subtract takes the item on the top and punches it out of the item on the bottom. So I'm going to come up here and press subtract. And based on this, the yellow should subtract from the teal. Perfect. So now I've created a little bit of a Tetris shape here. The yellow is gone. This is a great way to carve out an advanced shape you might want. Next is intersect. You could probably guess what this is. Only the area that is shared between the two objects will survive. So I'll press intersect, and I only get the square in the middle. Great, and just to show you, look at that. Fits perfectly with a little maneuvering. There we go. Fits perfectly right into that previous shape, and I'll put that back where it belongs. And finally, difference. So if intersect only survives the thing that is shared, difference only removes the shared, which means this square in the middle should be cut out. So press difference, and there we go. So you can see this would be great for creating negative space in logos. It's a wonderful way of doing that, and it makes all of it transparent. So if you do shadows or effects, you have that stuff knocked out. Two things that are great here about Boolean operations. If we have all of these combined shapes, let's look in the layers panel. First of all, we get a very accurate reflection of what our object looks like here in layers, and when we hover, they highlight. That's great. But you can also toggle open this layer, and it shows you the original squares that it was made of, or the original any path that it was made of. And that means you can go, and I'll see the combined one here. I can go and select a rectangle and edit it, and it will continue to respect the initial operation. Maybe I want to round its corners. Maybe I want to change it altogether. So it shows here what sort of method in the icon panel it was used to assemble. Well, I can select these two objects again and say union instead, and I can apply that here. Maybe I want to take this object and make it not a part of it anymore. I can take the layer and drag it out, up and above, and here it's out. It's as if the command never happened. That means, I'm going to actually undo with Command Z. That means you can also stack these effects. So if I bring these things close together, I'll put this square inside. I'm going to wrap this, and I'm going to send this over here. Sort of strange alien symbol looking thing. I'm going to select all these things, and I'm going to union them. So now this is a single shape. This can be all styled. If you did a gradient on it, you would get it to go over the whole object. And with this singular shape, you can also break down and look at that. It's exactly even expanded. Like we expanded it before, we could collapse this. We could change these things. We could make them different. You can even say, hey, I don't want this to be union. This one's going to be subtract, or this one's going to be intersect. Difference. You can change all of them at any time. You can say none. This is just part of the combined shape. So Boolean operations are really powerful. Now let me show you a really easy Boolean operation in action. I'm just going to take a couple circles. I'm going to keep them on the same plane. And that's just like you would do in Illustrator. So let me walk you through it a little bit again. Hold down Option. Make one over here. Then I'm going to hold down Option, and I'm holding down Shift to keep them in a straight line, just like in Adobe. I'll kind of come up here. You probably know what's happening at this point. I'll hold down Option and Shift and get another one. Let's go even bigger. So now we have a fluffy cloud. Very simple, but I want the bottom to be even. So I'll take a rectangle, and I'll start here right in the middle of the circle. Smart Guides help me. Click and drag over. That's the middle of that circle. Perfect. A nice flat edge. Well, that's great, but if I put borders on them, like you get something like this. Well, that's no good. If you want to do a line icon, you need something much cleaner than that. So I'll select all these objects, and I'll hit Union. And now we have a nice, clean, clear cloud that we can edit, we can turn into a line by removing its fill. And just like that, it'll be styled as one thing. If we want to go ahead and make some raindrops, that's easy too. So I'll hit O on the keyboard and draw out a little circle here. Then I'll double click to edit. I'll take the top and pull it up. It's already in mirror mode, so I'll drag it in. Just like that. And we have a raindrop, and then I'll hold down Option and drag it out. Beautiful. So now I have some rains and a cloud, and we basically learned how to do all that just in this creation. Now, if you want, you could drag that all and union that, and you see now they all share the same stroke. If you made that stroke outside, you get different effects. But we're going to talk about all this fill and stroke options in the next lesson, styling, because there's all that and a bag of potato chips. Is that a saying anymore? I feel like it's not. Okay, well, all of that and more in the next lesson. But until then, that is the basics of creation and object manipulation inside of Sketch. Yes, there's a lot more to come with text. I'm sure a lot of you are like, hey, I want to know all about text. That will be a separate lesson. Until then, practice drawing objects and combining them in different ways and seeing what kind of complex things that you can build on top of each other in Sketch. All right, until then, I will see you in the next lesson.